So hello and welcome friends. In this video, we'll visualize the basic structure of C++ program. In the previous lecture, we discussed the importance of learning C++ and we had written and executed a small C++ program. Today we are going to discuss that program in more detail. So what is the agenda for today's class? The topics which we'll cover in today's class are as mentioned, basic structure of C++ program, variables and comments in C++, variable scope and data types in C++, C++ basic input and output, and at the last we'll see that how to clear the input buffer in C or C++. So let's have a look over this. So let me open my online compiler to discuss about it. This was the program which we discussed in the last class. So here, let me open it. Yeah. So as you can see here, this was the program that we have executed in our previous lecture. Now we'll discuss what each line of code in this program does. Let's start with the first line of code, hash include iostream. In this line of code, hash include is a keyword used to add libraries in our program. And iostream is the name of a library added to our program. The iostream library helps us to get input data and show output data. The iostream library also has many more uses. It is not only limited to input and output, but for now, we will not go into more detail in this. No, one more thing to consider here is that second line of code is blank. There is no code written. The thing to consider here is that it doesn't matter how many lines you have left empty in a C++ program. Let me give some more spaces. Yeah. So computer is going to do what? Computer or compiler will ignore all those lines and only checks the ones with the code only. Yeah. So now on to this third line of code, which is int main. So it is the line of code. Int is a return type which is called integer, and main is a function. The brackets, these round brackets denotes that it is a function. Yeah. And the curly bracket, this opening curly bracket denotes that it is the starting of a function, and the closing bracket denotes it is the ending of a function. Whatever we'll write within these curly brackets, that will come under this main function. Yeah. And here I'll give you an example to better understand the functionality of a main function. Just imagine that you own a coffee shop. Yeah. Just imagine that you own a coffee shop and you have some employees who work for you. Yeah. Let's name them as one would be Rita, and one would be Ram, and this is Mohan, let's say, right? And this is our coffee shop. Yeah. So for an example, we own a coffee shop and then these employees work for you. Yeah. The function of Rita is to take orders. Okay. So Rita will take order first of all. Right. And then what else, like the function of Ram is to make coffee. Yeah. He will prepare coffee actually. Yeah. And then function of Mohan is to what? Deliver the coffee actually. Okay. And then in this scenario we can say that Rita is the primary function from which all the other tasks will start. And the coffee is what? Coffee is a return value. So in a cup of tea, you can say this coffee is nothing but a return data type. You can say return 0 we are writing in case of int main. Yeah. So main function is working as a Rita. Okay. It will take all the tasks and return value is what Mohan is delivering at the end of this, you can say, task. Yeah. And the coffees are return value. Yeah. As we have already discussed in this line of code, let's see. In this line of code, our main uh, in this line of code, our main is a reserved function. This main, okay, this main is a reserved function, or you can say reserved keyword actually. Yeah. And we cannot change it to some other keyword. Yeah. It was just an analogy, and you will understand this very well in the upcoming tutorials. Now let's talk about the fourth line of code, that is std, and you can say full colon, double full colon, and cout, hello world. In this line of code, std is a namespace, and these double colons is the scope resolution operator, and cout, and then this is a function which is used to output the data. hello world is our output string. You can say whatever you will write within these double quotes will be printed as it is. And finally this semicolon is used to end the statement. The code std and cout, you can say std double colon cout tells the compiler that cout identifier resides in the std namespace. To avoid writing this std again and again, we can write a single line as, let me write here, we can write using namespace. At the very top of every function, I am writing this using namespace std. Yeah. So what it will do actually, now computer knows from which namespace it has to find cin and cout. Yeah. So we need not to write, this std and double colon here. So we will directly write cout, and when we run the code, you can see the output is coming. Yeah, as it is printing this data as it is here in the output console. Yeah, so main key points here are what we can write as many statements as we want in a single line, but I recommend you write one statement per line to keep the code neat and clean. Anything which is written within double quotation like this is a string literal. Okay, we'll discuss more about on this literal later. Yeah, now let's talk about the fifth line of code, that is return zero. So in this line of code, the return keyword will return zero as as an integer to our main function, int main. Okay, that's why as we have discussed before also, returning zero as a value to the main function means successful termination of the program. So that was an anatomy of a C++ program. I hope you understand the functions of various parts of C++ program. Now let's cover header files in C++. Yeah, what are these? So there are hash include. You remember hash include used in the C++ is to import header files actually in our C++ program. The reason to introduce iostream header file into our program is that functions like cout, cin are defined inside those header files. And these there are two types of header files. One is called as system header file. System header files, you can say, ships with the compiler. It comes with the compiler. For example, hash I include iostream. To see the references for header files, you can refer to a link I will be providing, okay, after the class also. Or yeah, so there is a online also you can search for the you can say system header files. You will find information about that while google, you can search over the google as well. Yeah. Now second is what, user defined header files. Yeah. So user defined header files, programmers writes this user defined header files himself. To include your header file in the program, you first need to make a header file in the current directory, and then you can add it. Yeah. So let's talk more about variables in C++. Now let's learn about variables and comments in C++ language. And we are going to cover two important concepts of C++ language. One is variables in C++ and comments in C++. Yeah. So variable in C++ are what? They are the containers to store our data. To make it easy to understand, I will give a scenario. Like to store water, we need a bottle, right? To store water, we require a bottle. And to store an, you can say, sugar, we need a box. Okay, we need a box. So there are different containers for different things, right? So in this scenario, bottle and box are containers that are storing water and sugar, right? So the same is the case with variables. There are containers for data types. There are containers for data types. According to the data type value, container size will vary. Yeah. As there are many types of data types. For example, int is used for integers. Yeah. And float is used for floating point numbers. Character, char, okay, is used for characters, storing characters, that is alphabetical value, and many more types are available. Yeah. The main point here is that these variables store values of these data types. Yeah. So now let me just open online GDB. Let's take an example of a variable. Let's take an example of a variable here. Is an integer variable sum, yeah, and which will store a value 6. Okay, that is an integer type. And writing the sum after cout statement will show us the value of what, value of this variable, okay, what this container is holding actually. Yeah, so let me just run this code and we can see the output then. Yeah, so can you see the value of sum is 6? It is coming out to be 6 because my variable that uh, whose name is sum is holding value what? An integer value of 6, right? Now let's discuss that why do we use comments, okay? So what is the actually use of comments in C++? Yeah, a comment is a human readable text in the source code, yeah, which is ignored by the compiler. There are two ways to write comments, yeah. So one way is to write single line comment. This is how we can write single line comment by using this double forward slashes sign. And this is how we can use a multi-line comment. If we want to write any multi-line comment, first of all we need to provide this symbol, okay, forward slash followed by this asterisk sign, okay, or multiple sign you can say, right? And then we can write, as many lines as you want. Like this is an example of, you can say, C++ also. Let me add one more line. So it's okay, it's going to be the commented out, and compiler will do what? Compiler will just ignore these lines, okay, whenever it encounters these double forward slashes or this kind of structure. So compiler is going to avoid this. It is not going to include it in our main code. Yeah, so you see that there were two, you can say there are two kinds of comments, single line comment as well as multi-line comment. Yeah, and we write, we then write text in between them. Like we can write text in between them, as I told you here. What we are writing here, any description, okay, description of our code we can write in our language so that we can make it readable. Yeah, so let's visualize now variable scope. What do we mean by variable scope? Okay, so now in our C++ language, we are going to cover two important points, that variable scope and data types. Yeah, so let's talk first of all about variable scope. So scope of a variable is the region in the program where the existence of that variable is valid. For example, consider this analogy that if one person travel to another country illegally, so we will not consider that country as its scope because he doesn't have the necessary documents to stay in that company. You can say country, right? And based on the scope, variables can be classified into two types. One is local variable, another is global variable. So local variables are what? They are declared inside curly braces of any function, or you can say any block, and can be accessed within them only. Okay, they live and die within those curly brackets. And what about global variables? Global variables are declared outside every function and can be accessed from anywhere. Yeah, so now what are the data types in C++? Data types define the type of data that a variable can hold. For example, an integer variable can hold integer data, a character can hold character data, etc. Right? And data types in C++ are categorized into three groups. One is built-in data type, another one is user-defined data type, and the third one is derived data type. Let's discuss about this built-in data type in C++. So these all are the, you can say, classification of built-in data types in C++. Integer, float, okay, we already have discussed about them. Character value. Double will have, will contain what? The decimal points value only, but up to a high precision. That means what? Up to many more, after decimal, we can make use of so many other digits as well, right? And boolean will store what? Either true or false. These values will be stored in this boolean data type. Okay, and then now let's talk about this user defined data type. So structure, union, and enum, these all are the kind of what user defined data types in C++. And what about derived data types in C++? So array, pointer, and function, we'll discuss the concept of user defined data types in another lecture, or derived data types also. Yeah, for now, understanding that these are user defined or derived data types is enough. Yeah, so we have discussed a lots of theory. Now we'll see the actual code and its working. Yeah, let's write the code for initializing variables, how to make a variable, how to initialize it. As you can see, this is the syntax to initialize any variable. Let me yeah, so syntax for declaring a variable is what? First of all, we need to declare what data type value it will hold, and then we can write any name of our variable. And then after, by writing this assignment operator, we can put some value. Okay, we can store some value to that particular variable. Let's see through an example. Yeah, so I want to give you an example of how to store, multiple data types. So here is an example, okay, where we are making what? Here you can see, yeah, so at line number, you can say this line number will tell what? We initialize two variable a and b, but these are what? These are commented out. Yeah, so when we comment out any line, so if you want to comment a single line, so we can make use of this double forward slashes. Okay, so they are commented out. That means what? Compiler don't know about this thing, right? Compiler doesn't know about these variables, right? And again we are declaring what? We are declaring again them in a single line. Yeah, this is also the way. By separating them by comma, we can, initialize two variable integer variable. Like here we are declaring what? A and b, but this time they both are on same line. Yeah, separated by comma. Main thing to note here is that variables can be initialized on separate lines or in a single line as well. Yeah, so in the next line, we have initialized a float, okay, a float variable pi, and assigned a decimal value 3.14 to it. Yeah, and in the next line, we have initialized a character variable c, okay, and then and assigned a character d to it. Yeah, we are assigning a character d to it. And the next in the next line, we have printed the value of a and b. Yeah, and in the next line, what we are doing? We are printing what? Main thing to note here is that slash n, okay? Backward slash n is what? Here you can see backward slash n. Yeah. So it is called as, it is used to print a new line actually. Yeah. It stands for, and we call it as a new line character. Yeah, it is also a kind of character. So what it will do? It will print this b value in the next line. Okay, by providing, first of all, it will provide a new line, then only it will execute the code. Okay, the, you can say, further code. Yeah, in the next line we have printed the value of pi. Okay, we are printing the value of pi, and after that we are doing what? We are just printing that what is stored in this variable c. Correct. So here is the data type. Here is the variable name. Variable name can be anything. We will learn. Okay, we will learn about the rules. Okay, of declaring variable names. But as of now, please see first of all the data type and variable name, assignment operator, and the value. We can say, right. Let's run it and see. Let's check the output. Okay. Yeah. So can you see the value of B is 12? Yeah. So value of A is 6. Right. The value of A is 6. Then followed by a new line. Okay, and in the new line we can see the value of b is whatever value we have provided. Okay, 12, and the value of pi is 3.14 is coming. Similarly, value of c is d. Yes, so we stored d inside character variable c, right? So we have discussed the variables, we have discussed what, like these all are, you can say, all about how to declare any variable. This is a simple program. Now we have to discuss about variable scope. Yeah, because we have discussed this variable scope in theory. Yeah, we'll see the actual code and its working. Yeah, so let's write the code for variable scope. So I have already written the, you can say, Here is the variable scope. Yeah, the example of variable scope is shown here, right? So here, what do you see? Can you see in this piece of code, we have initialized two glow variables. Okay, glow is the name of a variable. Now, this variable is initialized or declared where? Outside everything. And here is also a glow variable, same variable name I am taking. Okay, now here in the main function, what do you see? In main function, so this variable scope will be within these opening and closing curly brackets. Okay, so now let's see how this function will work. Yeah, so now first variable is outside the main function and second variable is inside the main function, right? The value assigned to glow variable outside the main function is 6, right? And the value assigned to the glow variable inside the main function is 9. Okay, and the one thing to note here is that the main function, we again assign a value 78. Okay, to the you can say we have again assigned a value of 78 to this glow variable, right? So now this we should know, we should talk about this thing, that first of all we have declared variable value this, and then we are changing again back its value to, you can say, 78, right? So okay, so which will update the previous value of 9, in our database. It will do what? In our, not in database, what compiler will do? Compiler will assign this new value to my variable, okay, which is glow, which is a local variable. So after initializing glow variables, we had the output, you can say output the glow, we have to see the changes, okay, inside that. So what we are doing here, there is a sum function also, okay, and this is called something as function calling. Okay, so this is called as function call, but we are not going into detail because we will discuss about this thing in the later classes. Okay, so this is how, what this is a function calling. So what compiler will do whenever compiler encounter this line, so it will directly move to that sum, okay, the definition of sum. So here we have defined the sum function as void sum, and inside that int a. Okay, we are initializing any variable a, but here we are outputting what we are using cout to print the data on to the console window, right? So cout what? Inside some function, whatever glow value is present. So computer will do what? Computer will first look, okay, inside some function. It will check for the glow variable value inside the some function. As we can see, there is no glow variable initialized inside the sum function. It will check for the glow variable then outside the sum function scope, okay, which we call a global scope. Yeah, as we can see that glow function is initialized in what? Initialized in global scope, right, with a value of what? 6. Correct, that is a global value of my glow variable, right? So the sum function will take that value, because since it is not present here, okay, we have not declared glow variable here inside these brackets. Yeah, and this glow function will be valid for only main function, yeah, from here to here. Yeah, and when the cout will run inside main function, so what is happening? Okay, let's see what will happen. So as we can see that there is a glow variable initialized inside the main function scope, which is a local scope. Yeah, it will use that value, this 78 value it will take. Yeah, so let me show you the output. When we click on this run button, let's see. Yeah, so inside some function, it is taking that global value, okay, and inside the main function when we are calling it, so it is taking what? The value which is locally present inside these curly brackets. Yeah, and this is not nothing but it's true, is a boolean variable, and its value is true. So true for computer is nothing but, okay, it will return as will be returned as 1. Okay, as we can see that the output is what? 6, 78, and 1, right? And the output 6 is from the cout of glow in some function, okay, and this output 78 is from the cout of glow in the main function, right? And the output 1 is from the cout of is true boolean variable in the main function, right? So let's discuss about some rules to declare variables, used to declare variables inside C++, okay, C++ language. Yeah. So here are some rules. Variable names in C++ language can range from 1 to 255. They must start with what? A letter of the alphabet or an underscore also. You can start with an underscore as well. Okay. After the first letter, variable names can contain letters and numbers also. Right. And variable names are case sensitive, so we should be very careful about, because as we as a human don't like to don't like that somebody change our name and call us by that name, right? So we have to be very specific while calling any variable, while declaring any variable, while printing any variable, right? So and yeah, one more thing, that no spaces and special characters are allowed, okay, within these variable names declaration, right? So we cannot use reserved keywords as a variable name. Yeah, this is also a very important thing. So these all are the list of some reserved keywords which are present in the C++. We can't make use of, or we can't name our variable name as these values, okay? These are reserved for computer. Otherwise, computer will get confused, okay, which one to consider. That's why. Yeah. Now we'll visualize the basic input and output in C++ language. Yeah. So basic input and output in C++ language is what C++ language comes with different libraries, okay, which helps us in performing input and output operations. Yeah. In C++, sequence of bytes corresponding to input and output are commonly known as streams, okay? We call it them as streams actually. Yeah. So what are the types? There are two types of streams. One is input stream. In the input stream, the direction of the flow of bytes occurs from the input device, for example, the keyboard, okay, to the memory. Right. And what about output stream? In output stream, the direction of flow of bytes occurs from main memory to the output device. For example, our display device, okay, our monitor. Yeah. So practical X-ray, I want to actually tell you, we'll see the actual code for input and output and it's working. So let's consider one code. Yeah, so let's consider a simple code, okay, of input and output. So here in this piece of code, we have declared two integer variables, num and num1 and num2. Okay, firstly we used a cout to print enter the value of num1. Okay, then a new line. Okay, inside new line, it will take what? It will take by using this scene. So scene is used to take input in num1. Okay, at the you can say runtime. Yeah, from the user. Secondly, we used cout to print, you can say enter the value of num2, right? So enter the value of num2. It will take the, you can say what, it will just display that data, right? And give a new line. And after that, it will just, we are going to scene. Yeah, we use scene to take the input in the num2 at the runtime from the user. Okay. In the end, we use cout to print the sum is num1 plus num2, which will add the values of both the variables and print it on the screen. Let's see the output of this program. Yeah, so we have executed our program. Okay, so now let me just take write one value as 3 and num2 value as 6. So it is displaying what? The sum is, yes, 3 plus 6 is 9, right? And if we run it again, it is again asking again for num2, num1 value. Okay, what value we want to put. So let me give 67 this time and let me give num2 value as 12. So then also it is displaying what? Sum of the newly entered value. Okay, so newly entered value is 67 and 12, and it is displaying the sum of these, right? One more thing, yeah, so we should know about these operators also. Yeah, so the sign, this, you can say less than, double less than, or double angle brackets is called as insertion operator. Okay, and this sign is called as an extraction operator. Yeah. And what is cout? Cout is keyword used to print something. And cin is the keyword used to take input at the runtime. Okay. So reserved, as we learned about the reserved keywords. So reserved keywords are those keywords that are used by the language itself. Yeah, which is why these keywords are not available for redefinition or overloading. You can say. Yeah, in short, you cannot create variables with these names. Yeah, a list of reserved keyword as we have seen here. Okay, we already have the list of, you can say, reserved keywords here. So we have to be very sure. Okay, we have to make sure that should not make any variable name as these. Okay, these kind of you can say keyword, right? So now let's discuss more about you can say get line and you can say buffer. First of all, let's see what is a buffer, right? A temporary storage area is called as buffer in computer language. Yeah, all the standard input and output device contain an input and output buffer. Yeah, in this section, what we'll do, we'll just see the concept of strings in such a way so that now a user should be able to enter the string like his full name, and we will see. Let's see how to initialize a string firstly. Then we'll make use of a header file. Let me just open my online GDP. Now let's take this example into consideration. So here is my main function. I am just using namespace, standard namespace. Okay, we can declare it globally also. Yeah, so string. Okay, let me just consider. So to make use of a string variable, we have to do what? We have to actually include one more header file as string. Okay, so these, because to use these functions related to strings. Okay, so now we have to make use of this header file. Now what we have to do, actually we have to initialize a string to pass, and you can say we will pass one value to it during the execution time, or we say that we have to use the keyboard and you can say, or console input. Yeah, standard input stream is to provide the input actually. Yeah, so take an example of a student only, right? So we are just trying to read the name of a student, and we are trying to print the value in the console in the standard output. So let's try to declare a string. So I have declared a string as name. Okay, I'll just write, now we can write to display the output as enter your name. Okay, so this string will be printed here on the console. Okay, we will see the output, and then we have to do what? We have to enter, okay, the data. It will take some value from the keyboard, okay, from the user, and then after we are displaying what is being entered. Okay, here let's see when I run it. So it is asking for my name. Now let me write anything. Let me write Diksha. So now here you can see there is no problem, okay, as it just read the particular name and printed that name. But what if again I enter? Let me write, open it again. Yeah. So let me enter Diksha space Verma, okay, full name. Yeah. So what do you see? Now there is a problem. Yeah. Here you can see that only Diksha is printed. There is no surname. That is being printed in this our output standard console, right? Because whenever first white space is encountered, this particular condition will be terminated. So it will not read after the first white space. So as soon as the compiler encounter first white space, then it will break the sequence. So this that's why this Verma, okay, that is present after white space is not being printed, right? Or we can say this is the flaw in our C++. Yeah, or you can say in cn, yeah, rather than C++. So we can't read the whole line if there is any space in comes in between the line, or any new line character, or you can say white space. In that case string will be terminated, right? In order to avoid this, in C plus, because C++ has provided a function that is known as a getLine function. Yeah, in that you have to pass what? Let me just write it out. Instead of writing cin, I am going to use here getLine function. So getLine function will take what? First of all, it will take, we have to pass cin, which is the standard input through which we are taking the input. Yeah, and the variable we have to write again what? The variable name, that is name only. Okay, to storing, which is used to store that particular input, right? So we can try now. Let me just try running it again. Let's see first of all. Okay. Okay. Let me just run it again, dear. Yeah. So enter your name. Let me enter this time. This is C, you can say C++ tutorial, right? Anything we can write. Let's see. So what it is printing now? Here, can you see? All the thing is coming here, right? Now it has read all the characters, and it has also read what? The particular white spaces. Yeah. So get line will be terminated only when a new line character is encountered. Yeah, till then it will read all the particular lines. That's why we can see that whole line is being printed, right? And then you can say characters in this we have white spaces also. So it has counted all the white spaces as well. Yeah. So this particular function is being provided in C++, which is present in the string class. Yeah. So we have to remember this whenever we are reading any string, we have to use getLine function, but not cin function, okay, in that particular case. And then now let's proceed. Let's try to extend this particular code. If I write, let's suppose I am just making use of an integer roll number also, okay, roll. Let me write here. Yeah, so I am declaring roll number. Again, we have to write what? Enter roll number, right? After this, let me just put a C out. So C out, I am just yeah, I am just printing what? Enter roll number. Roll number. Let's see. When we are just taking input as roll number, so what we need to do? We need to do only cin because it is an integer type, okay, after all. So I am just writing in cin roll, and then what I have to declare? I want to declare what the value present, what is the value present in this roll variable, okay? So now here the roll number is, let me write, the roll number is what? Is, and then after giving some space, we can write roll is this, right? So let me just give a new line character also after this. Yeah. So let's try to run this code actually. This time, enter your name. Okay, so I am entering my name. Now it is asking for enter roll number. So let me enter the roll number as well. So roll number also it has printed, right? But this code is working fine. Okay, there is no problem in the output. So what if I just write this roll number code before name? Let's see. Okay, so let me just write, let me just cut this code from here. Let me write before it, okay, before taking the name. So let me run the program again, and this time I am just entering a roll number. And yeah, so now here can you see? Yeah, if we write roll number and if we provide any numeric value before that, yeah, particular string message, we can see it has printed roll number. But the program has terminated abruptly. Yeah, we haven't provided any name, and we have just entered the roll number, and it has printed the roll number, and it has skipped the name, right? So when we type any roll number, this scene takes a new line, okay, new line character in its buffer. So whenever we are reading the input from scene or standard console, then the particular input is not being stored directly. It is being stored in a buffer. Yeah. And this scene treat this new line as a delimiter. So as a result of this new line character is not being read. It will remain in the input buffer only. Yeah, so all the values which we are reading, they are first stored in input buffer, and from that input buffer it will be provided to the output stream. So now this new line character is present in the input buffer, is not flushed out. Okay, that new line character is not flushed out actually. Yeah, so what is the solution? Like how to do that thing, right? Buffer, you can say this new line character present in the input is not flushed out. Yeah, so when we are executing that, we want to print our name, so that so it is taking that new line character that is present in our previous input. Yeah, because that new line character has been stored as an input in the buffer, so it is taking the previous value. The previous value is slash n, and that is the new line, right? New line character. So that's why it is keeping this particular name, because here the new line character which is being read is streamed in the input buffer by the compiler. So now this has been skipped, okay, which are not getting, you can say, which we are not getting the expected result that we want to be, right? So the main solution to this problem is to flush the buffer. So we have to flush all the previous content, okay, that are present in the buffer. So we have to flush new line character from the buffer. So we will just write after seeing what, let me just write one more thing. After just seeing like this roll number, I will just write cin dot ignore function. Let me write it out. Yeah, so we are just trying to ignore all the particular previous values that has stored in the buffer. So all the line characters which will be coming, okay, across, they all will be ignored. Now if I want to execute this code, if I want to print, let me see, I will write roll number as, let me write, roll number as 56, anything, okay. So roll number is this, and now it is asking for my name, okay. Now it is working fine. Let me write here. Yeah, so now both of the things are being printed, right? So there it says that roll number is 55, and it is asking for the name also, right? That because my cursor was blinking that time. So it means that it has skipped all the things. It has flushed the previous value that has been present into the buffer. So it has flushed the new line character from the buffer. Now we can see, we just have to write our name and it will be printed over the console. Okay. So in this way, you can use this cin.ignore function and try to use the getLine function if you are reading a particular string, okay, rather than a single value. Yeah, so these all are the, you can say, uses. And if you are reading a numerical value before a particular string, so you have to write what, cin.ignore, okay, function after that, right? So now you can say else the next particular value will not be read, right? Will not be read, you can say. Yeah, it will be skipped. So this is the thing you have to be very careful about. So I hope this is clear to you. So thank you so much for listening to these things, and happy learning. See you in the next lecture.